10 years ago, I had what would prove to be one of the single most transformative experiences of my entire life. And maybe the single most impactful thing I've ever done. And that was, I decided I would learn how to make soil. So I got a couple abandoned pallets that I found in my city. And I kind of just nailed them together, and then some friend had some scrap chicken wire. And I used that to finish off the front. And that was pretty much it. Now, how in the world did that end up being one of the single most transformative acts? Let me tell you. I did that in an apartment complex, not hidden away in some backyard. I did that in full view of the 100 or so people living there. And then I went around and knocked on their doors. I knocked on my neighbors' doors and I said, I'm just a single guy, I don't make enough food waste. I heard this wild idea that we can turn our food waste into soil. I've never seen it, to be honest, but internet says so. I'm willing to give it a try. I need your food waste, though. You know? And they're all like, you mean the stuff I'm just throwing away? Like, you want my garbage? Like, yeah, but it turns out it might not be garbage after all. So so they said, well, can I bring this? Can I bring that? And I said, yeah, just bring everything, like your coffee grounds, your pizza boxes. Let's just see how far this can go. And I would literally walk them over to this compost bin and we just drop it in there. Within a few weeks, over a dozen people were doing that. Because you see, I'd made it really easy for them. I said, you don't have to learn how to make soil. I'll take care of it. Just come and bury your food stuff in this mix of leaves and sawdust that I've got ready for us, and I'll take care of the rest. And I spent the next 3 months really, really getting good at making soil. And by golly, it worked. Like the food waste, the pizza boxes, the eggshells, the coffee grounds, all of it disappeared and turned into this jet black, nourishing soil, much to my surprise and the surprise of my dozen neighbors. And what happened next was completely unexpected. Everybody who participated had what I would call a full-on environmental awakening. We're talking 0 to 60, people who didn't know pretty much anything about the planet, and suddenly they were saying, I can't believe I've been throwing this stuff away for years. I can't believe my parents throw this stuff away. Can you believe that in our university dining hall they throw this stuff away? Like, they got active. 3 of the people who were participating there, who had never known anything about soil before, went on to form what is now one of the nation's largest compost pickup services. I mean, people from this single experience of watching their food waste turn into soil changed what they did with the rest of their lives. So I spent some time wondering, how could this simple act have been so powerful? Like, I spent like the past 10 years, and every couple years I would, oh, that must have been what was going on. So immediately I would say, first off, it was a relief. The moment that people began dropping their food waste into this bin, it was a relief. Why is it a relief? Because deep down, I think we're all sort of ashamed these days to be human. We are the only animal who talks really badly about ourselves. You know, we're wrecking the planet, this and that. Everybody knows now that we're wrecking the planet. But what do you do about it? Do you lie in bed and mope all day? Like people are just suppressing all of this shame of being human. But here they were, dropping the food waste into this bin, watching it turn back into soil. And what went from the shameful experience of putting the planet in the garbage can, and that is literally what's going on, folks, when we let that food waste, when we don't just let it, when we throw it away, we are treating the planet like garbage. That's actually what's going on. We're treating the planet like garbage. And suddenly, these people who were treating the planet like garbage, and we've all done it, now they were having a beautiful experience instead. If you think about it, they were having the first regenerative experience of their lives. Because almost no modern person today, no matter how many degrees and PhDs and digits in their bank account, almost no living human today relatively, has had a regenerative experience where their life was brought into harmony with the planet's existence. Recycling doesn't do it, driving an electric car doesn't do it. That stuff is nice, but it's just damage control. It's not regenerative. So suddenly, with this humble little bin, people were having a regenerative experience with the planet that depended on them to participate. So don't underestimate that experience. It's a 0 to 1 experience, from nothing to something. Some people, I would say, began to have spiritual experiences there. Churches in many places have lost their meaning. Temples and so on, pointy spires, gold trim. What does it really mean anymore? We've seen so many abuses with religion. And suddenly, I swear, this soil bin became like an altar. And these food scraps became like an offering. And so when you go from throwing the planet in the garbage to now feeling that you're carrying the broken planet that has fed you and created your life force back to this portal of regeneration, think of the delta there. That's a massively different experience you're having. And frankly, it's an experience that leaves you with a new kind of consciousness. An old kind of consciousness, but a new kind of consciousness for most modern people. Because what's happening there is you're completing a feedback loop. And there's almost no complete feedback loops in this modern time. We live in a box and bin culture. Within a couple clicks, there's a box on its way to you. It's going to show up on your doorstep. You play with it for a while, you get tired of it, it breaks, and then you put it in another box or bin and somebody hauls it away in a truck. It never dawns on the average person anymore that nature needed to be consumed to turn into the product you bought. And that nature needs to be consumed again to turn into the landfill, to store it. Never, because we're kept in the sweet little consumption fun part in the middle. But it makes us stupid because the human mind is it's the single most complex device we've ever experienced, we've ever discovered, rather, scientifically. And of course, when that's integrated into the whole body, these trillion cells that we all possess, that's the greatest technology we've ever encountered. There's nothing more complex in the known universe. And when it gets a complete feedback loop, it updates itself automatically. And so now people bringing their food waste and simply watching it turn back into soil, and me coming out in the evening and prettying it up and making sure it's all going well, it updated the feedback loop for the first time in their life. The whole circle of life, and their consciousness updated automatically. And they were left with what I would call ecosystem consciousness. Because it makes a difference if you have it or not. If you don't have it, all you see are some shrubs and trees and rocks, and you call those raw materials, and it's probably a good idea to manage the raw materials so you can keep making stuff and buying stuff. That's what it's like to not have ecosystem consciousness. But when you have ecosystem consciousness, you look out and it's like your third eye is opened or something. You see that it's more than just a couple of trees and shrubs. You see that there's fungi and you see that there's microbes, and you can just tell it's all there, this big teeming web of life. It's all there and it's alive. And you end up with what I call earth empathy. You can just feel the living planet and you want to be kind to it. That's it. You don't need the scary charts and graphs and scary statistics and doomsday scenarios. That's what we're doing now. We're chasing people around with all that scary stuff, and they don't have ecosystem consciousness, and they don't know what to do, and they get full of shame, and they feel fearful and disempowered. So we've got a lot of problems today. We've got, as Tim just told us, we got this issue with CO2. There's too much of it in the air. We've got this nutrient loss going on. I think the truth is, every week when you go to the grocery store, the food is a little less nutritious than the previous week you shopped there. It actually makes sense. That's actually what's going on. We've got this topsoil loss. The UN says 60 years left of agricultural harvest at the rate of topsoil loss today. And then we've got this issue of 7.5 billion people who, frankly, right now do not have the consciousness required to coexist with one another. See, the more people exist on the planet, the higher our consciousness needs to be to actually exist peaceably with one another, not kill each other, not kill the planet. And if you were to sum up our sum total consciousness right now, it is below whatever threshold is required for this many people to actually survive on this planet. What's crazy is I think we know the solution, and that is to make soil. So 1.6 billion tons of food waste right now every year going to landfills. I think it's probably more because there's a bunch of things people don't even consider food anymore. All those hundreds of millions of acorns lying around on the sidewalk right now, I don't think those are in those statistics. All that food rots in the landfills, goes up as methane. That's even worse. That's an even worse greenhouse gas than CO2, and then turns into CO2 later. All those nutrients we're missing, well, they're headed off to the garbage dump. You don't need Sherlock Holmes to tell you where it's going. Like, you can see it. It's going off to the garbage dump. In the topsoil, we know that we can turn this food waste back into topsoil. And when we make soil, it gives us that consciousness that we need. It's absolutely raised my consciousness. I think it raises your consciousness whenever your skin comes into contact with living soil. And we brought some with us in case you want to talk to the planet directly yourself. Because it's easy to get depressed and disconnected these days. But when your skin is having a conversation with hundreds of billions of microbes in this soil, non-verbally, subconsciously, you cheer up a bit. You don't feel so alone. You're not alone. There's no way you could possibly be alone. But this conversation isn't happening anywhere these days. It's all glass and steel and plastic. This microphone's going to be a bit dirty. Sorry, guys. So when I say that making soil can save the planet, do I mean it? I mean yes. I absolutely mean it. But I mean millions of us making soil. You and me, in this audience, all of us making soil, just like my neighbors and I did with that humble little bin. How do you do that? Well, we've got a plan. First of all, to make soil go mainstream, something that's not just a niche, enviro, eco hobby, but actually mainstream, we got to change a few things. I'm sorry, folks, but the word compost is terminally unsexy. It's just not going to scale. So we're just going to call it soil from now on. And we're also going to create a new identity for the human race to step up to, that of soil makers. The soil maker, mark my words, the soil maker will be, within a few years' time, a revered role in society. Who's your farmer is going to also become who's your soil maker. You see, the act of making soil is a uniquely human possibility. Other animals make soil, but they pretty much have to chew it up and poop it out. We can do that too, actually. But we're the only animal so far that has the intelligence to manage carbon and nitrogen, air and moisture in just the right way that causes these trillions of microbes to come alive and to heal our planet. That's the one thing the human animal can do that no other animal can. When was the last time you heard something good about human beings? You can do something that no other animal can, because you're a special animal. All that's been missing is that new identity for us to step into and a dash of technology, which we've made at MakeSoil.org. That represents an online platform that does something that nothing has ever done to this point, which is it connects people who know how to make soil with other people who are willing to contribute their food scraps and waste, people who are done throwing the planet in the garbage. And it acts like a nervous system for this nutrient cycling, carbon sequestering, new type of consciousness, self-organizing thing that we need to do. So if you go there right now, if you know how to make soil, there is probably no more impactful, important thing you could possibly do than to go to that website, put yourself on it, and then your neighbors can find you, and you can start accepting their food waste, and they can start making soil. They can just witness you making the soil. You're doing 80% of it, but they're going to get enough of a hit. They're going to get enough to have this environmental awakening just by that fact. If you don't know how to make soil or aren't ready to or think you can't, you sign up anyway, and we'll have your address, and we'll see it on the map. And my team, who is here, could you all raise your hand if you're on the MakeSoil team and you're here? And these people will be happy to talk with you afterwards about how to get involved. But once you're on that map, the team is behind the scenes finding a soil maker near you. If we have to go out there and teach somebody in your neighborhood to make soil and to sign up on this map, and we have to walk them over to their computer and put them on this map, we will, so that you can then see them and that you can take your food scraps over to them. So all we have to do is scale that experience 1,000,000 times over. And can it work? Yes, because millions of humans do all kinds of things. They watch soccer, they drink beer, they go to movies. There's no reason that making soil can't be something that millions of humans do too. And it actually makes sense because this problem, this food waste problem, this climate problem, this carbon problem, this nutrient problem, this topsoil problem, it's a decentralized problem. It's not coming from any one source. It's a decentralized problem, highly correlated with wherever we are, and we're decentralized. The solution is a decentralized solution. You can't wait for a government to fix this, or a few farmers. It's us, and we can do it, and we just haven't realized that we can. And I actually don't know that there's any solution outside of that. I'm not sure there's meant to be any solution outside of that. I think climate change is a setup. I think this whole environmental situation is a setup. And it only gets solved if we all work together and come along and evolve. That's the feedback loop that's needing to happen there. We can't wait for anybody else to do this, and we can do this together. So, the human being, the human species, has the potential to go from the single most destructive animal on the planet to the single most regenerative animal on the planet. Absolutely, that is our potential. To take this unprecedented intelligence that has been so dysfunctionally misapplied and to direct it toward the Earth's regeneration. The human being, the single most regenerative animal on the planet. That would be a beautiful new identity for us all to step into together. So there's no more wondering what to do or how to do it or who's going to do it. Let's just make soil together. Thank you.